Hello, you're listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club, and you're most welcome.
Hello, my name's Paul Carmichael.
And I'm Alan Lear.
And we're not in the presidential garden this week. We are descending the stairs into what's known as the annex.
Yeah, we're descending the stairs into Tony's annex, and I have to say, I think he's been badly influenced by that time he spent a summer as a member of the Hellfire Club because he couldn't spell Groucho. There seem to be some sort of moist dungeons.
There are.
There are flaming brands on the walls. Joe Brand is particularly upset.
And if we open this door, shall we see what is revealed within here? It's
Russell Grant.
It's Tony Slattery, the president
is.
of the Rambling Club.
Hello there.
Hello, Tony. Tony, why have we been summoned to the deepest, darkest, dankest corner of this hell-forsaken dungeon?
Well, it's mainly personal, and that's why we're naked. And,
Right.
I did wonder.
Did you? Oh,
I can feel dew forming on parts of me.
June?
That
That was a summer and a half.
would be the opposite problem, I think.
Yes. No, down here it's dank things grow, and it's really good fun because it reminds me of all those Vincent Price movies I used to love. He was famous for going halfway through going, "Are you enjoying it?"
Yes.
He was very famous at that.
Yeah. Wonderful actor, Vincent Price.
Oh, he
but,
was.
But the voice is something that still scares the hell out of me. It wasn't affected at all, was it? That
No,
was
his
his
actual
voice.
speaking voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, something of a polymath. He was well regarded
yes.
as a very cultured man. He was something of a wine connoisseur. He knew a lot about art. There's a story that he was at a director's house and he was admiring one of the paintings on the wall. And the director said to him, "Do you know how much I paid for that?" And he said, "Well, I hope not a lot because it's a copy." And he said, "What do you mean it's a copy?" He said, "Well, the original's hanging in the Guggenheim." I don't know why I was doing Peter Lorre rather than Vincent Price. You get the gist.
And he had a wonderful relationship with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. So you just see little clips occasionally of them just having a laugh together. And it's the most lovely thing to see. And Christopher Lee, just another one with a fascinating life. And
Yes.
Brilliant! I did a voiceover with Christopher Lee. He'd just been knighted, and Lady Lee came in, and all these jaspers around, and it's just like my collective noun for advertising folk. But he warmed to me because I was the only person who stood up when they both came into the room, and he regarded that as good manners, and so after that he said, "Could we just put this on mute? I want to talk to Tony alone." And so they went, "Okay." And so he said, "What do you think of the script?" "Well, I think it's terrible. So do I. Shall we change it?" Yes. Okay. So we did change it, and we talked for about a quarter of an hour about the use of good grammar. And he was like, "Oh yes, I can tell you an educated person." So we completely changed the script. And then Christopher Lee said, "We're ready for you now."
very last thing he ever recorded before he died, about 2 weeks before his death, he was in the studio recording the soundtrack for a thrash metal album. Absolutely wonderful.
His third. He was in his 90s and he'd already released 2 heavy metal albums.
Really?
About the life of Charlemagne, I believe.
That's right, yes. That's right, yeah.
Who was supposedly one of his ancestors, although of course that's one of those things where Charlemagne is sufficiently far back in history that he's more or less everybody in Europe's ancestor.
Yeah.
But I believe he was something of a fabulist, Christopher Lee. He used to make up his own. Was it Robin Ince always says that if you spoke, there was an actor you'd mention Christopher Lee to, and he'd go, "Oh, Christopher Lee, either he did it or his mother flew one."
Which I can very explain.
But he was. Rhys Shearsmith tells the story of going to meet Christopher Lee for dinner towards the end of his life, and Rhys Shearsmith owned a little piece of wicker in a souvenir box, which was supposedly one of the bits of wicker from The Wicker Man. And he took it along just to show to Christopher Lee, thinking it was a bit funny, you know. And Lee kind of said, "Can I have a look at that?" And he looked at it and said, "Has anybody got a pen?" And he got a pen and he wrote on the piece of wicker, "This is genuine, Christopher Lee." Marvellous.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, I'm a little bit chilly down here in the dark. So, shall we possibly now make our escape by turning our attention to our wonderful magical bingo machine?
Let us do.
Let's fire up and see where we end up this week. Off we go.
I hope it's not the June again. I had to take sandworming tablets for a month.
Did you? You look well on it.
Thank you.
Tony's enchanted bingo machine. A curious contraption of cogs, levers and glowing buttons that hums with ominous energy. This machine generates 3 completely random numbers. These numbers are fed directly into the Dewey Decimal System, the arcane reference system by which books and their contents are categorized. In this way, the bingo machine conjures from thin air a topic of conversation so enthralling, so wildly unexpected, that it leaves the members of the Rambling Club both bewildered and vaguely excited. Thus, another evening is saved from the brink of boredom, thanks to Tony's marvellous, possibly haunted and entirely inexplicable bingo machine.
And here we are in the great outdoors, once again ready to begin our first ramble. And the numbers selected by our machine are
8, 4, 2.
8, 4, 2. So if we tap this button on the top of the machine, it will reveal that the first subject for us to ramble with is transition and Renaissance periods, 1400 to 1600.
Right.
Well, there was an awful lot
Yeah, I mean, the actual Renaissance
happened at that point, which I suppose you would call a transition, wouldn't you?
You wouldn't.
In terms of culture, you're at a period there where I suppose theatre becomes much more organised. You have the opening of official playhouses, so that theatres aren't just performed by touring players on pop-up stages anymore.
Is the Lord Chamberlain's office created in that time too?
Lord Chamberlain's office is in the 1400s.
Yeah.
So is it a renaissance if we're bringing in censorship? There's a
Well,
question.
there we go, you see. The Lord Chamberlain's office was chiefly run by the Lord Chamberlain. Thank you.
I suppose I would argue that, because you were asking about whether it's Renaissance if you're bringing in censorship.
Yeah.
I would argue that probably the fact that somebody feels you have to bring in censorship is proof that there was a Renaissance, that something
Yes.
new was happening.
Yeah.
And that, the powers that be felt that some sort of break or control had to be applied to it.
Well, that's it, and that it did now have to be controlled. It couldn't be. But I suppose beforehand, before you start getting into those wonderful writers and all of their bloodthirsty thrillers, you were talking about liturgical drama. So essentially what you've got is villagers performing the Nativity or the Easter story, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
Passion plays.
That's it.
Yeah.
So if it's passion plays, there's no real need for censorship.
And passion, coming from the Greek, of course. It means suffering.
Yes, as in the Passion of the Christ.
As in the Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
As in a passion play.
Torment.
As opposed to, I don't know, Frank Finlay in Bouquet of Barbed Wire. See, there was passion in that, but very few Christ figures.
Yeah.
Although if the Romans had barbed wire, it would have saved a lot of effort with hammer and nails, wouldn't it?
That, yes.
Well,
Anyone from the Church of England listening? I'm talking directly to Anne Widdicombe.
Yeah. She's Catholic, she's not civic.
Oh, well, it doesn't really matter in her case because she's so insignificant as a human being and a woman, if she can still be called thus in these modern days of ours. The Lord Chamberlain should have banned Anne Widdicombe.
He could have done. The Lord Chamberlain's office was extant until quite recent, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean...
Wasn't... Well, Lady Chatterley's lover, that was one of the last cases, wasn't it?
67 was
That's
the...
right.
I don't know if that was the Lord Chamberlain. That was under the auspices of the Obscene Publications
Oh,
Act,
that's
I
right.
think.
But I mean, I think the general thing that I've always thought is what you get in the 60s when you get Joe Orton and people like that coming in. You get this theatre that just starts to really push, and that's when you get Kenneth Tynan working with John Lennon and so on to write O Calcutta.
Yes.
And
Which is a corruption of
the French.
okay, good to us.
Is that-
What a lovely arse you've got.
That's it, yeah. So all of a sudden, when you've got that being performed, because up until then, of course, if you wanted nudity on stage, it was absolutely fine, but it had to be frozen.
Static.
Static. So
Yes, like the Windmill Girls.
Yes.
that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could be stood there, totally starkers, and then the lights would go down, you quickly change position, lights
That's
would
right.
come up, but
Yes.
you couldn't see the change. Which
Listeners
is,
may remember this was depicted in Mrs. Henderson Presents.
yes.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
And nipples had to be covered with, it always makes me, because they are called pasties,
Yes.
of course, I suppose of tassel.
Presumably because you paste them on.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so, as opposed to patsy, which is something to do with something else, isn't it?
And EastEnders, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Because if you had strippers who were covered in pasties, that's, if their breasts were covered in Cornish pasties, that would have been an entirely different niche type of
You
theatre.
get a lucky volunteer from the
Yes.
audience to come and nibble
Yes.
them away. gradually.
And if we are talking about, the genius of Kenneth Halliwell and Joe Orton, of course, there's that terrible bad joke about that. They were going to give it up anyway, and Kenneth Halliwell was going to send to swap careers and become an interior decorator.
Wow. I did.
Do you see where I'm going with that?
I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast before, but I used to be a member of an...
Sorry, I've just got it!
You just got it.
Tony.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, it was a long time ago.
They reused
I've
that.
still got some of the designs.
They reused that joke in the 90s when they said that the MTV Video Awards were going to give Best Graphic Presentation to the wall behind Kurt Cobain's head. But I don't think I
Our
mentioned
taste
this.
score in mine is
Yes,
frowning.
shaking his head. But I don't think I mentioned this before. I used to be a member of an amateur dramatics group called the Carlton Players, based out of Birkenhead in Merseyside. And Kenneth Halliwell was a member of that group before he went to RADA. So when, not so long ago, they had their 75th anniversary, they put photos up of old casts from various plays. And I said to somebody I would buy them a pint if they could find me the two photos in the room that had a murderer in them. Because they put Kenneth Halliwell up in two
Indeed.
things.
Kenneth Halliwell's famous. He went to RADA, didn't he?
Yes, I believe so.
And
Yeah.
his, what got him through was this, allegedly one of the spookiest auditions where they just had to go and mime something normal, and he mimed picking up a kitten and throttling it and kicking it into the audience, and then he just left the stage.
Yeah,
The signs were there.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's depicted in Prick Up Your Ears, where he's played by Alfred Molina, of course. It's a group improvisation where they all have to mime handling a cat, and Halliwell throttles it and kicks it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, after O Calcutta, you couldn't really have a Lord Chamberlain. What was the point in him?
Well, quite. And indeed, Kenneth Tynan, famously, as a libertarian in his views, one of his provisos was that absolutely anything could be involved in this review except anything to do with homosexuality, which is odd looking back on it.
It is.
And I remember seeing O Calcutta being sneaked in there by a teacher, and it was sort of quite outrageous at the time. There were silly lines like, I don't know whether taste permits. Yes, it does. One scene about lovemaking, and it was, oh, honey, I couldn't be bothered, so I just peed up you instead. And it was just this juvenile stream of consciousness, and it was considered outrageous at the time. And yes, there was nudity, but then the nudity, talking of Renaissance, I mean, there was nudity before. Well, we go on to Adam's navel button. Isn't there a theory about that?
It was a genuine major question of theological import in the medieval period. It was called the omphalos question, because omphalos is Greek for navel. And the question was, did Adam and Eve have belly buttons? Because God created them, instanta out of nothing. So they would not have had a human birth. Therefore, there would be no scar where the umbilical cord used to be.
Except also alternative to that view was the idea that God worked at Greg's at the time, and when he'd finished with Adam and Eve, he'd put his finger in their tummy and then, all done, like that. So that's why they've got navel buttons.
Yeah. So then, the question was, were they created ex nihilo and therefore didn't need belly buttons, or were they created as standard archetypes of humanity, in which case they would have had belly buttons because everybody else has belly buttons, even though they actually didn't have a reason to have them.
And the reason they didn't is because they didn't exist.
Yes, absolutely so. And this is something people get wrong about mitochondrial Eve as well. There's no such thing as mitochondrial Eve. Mitochondrial Eve is the last human from whom all humans' mitochondrial DNA is descended. So the identity of mitochondrial Eve changes over time, depending on how far back we can actually pass the mitochondrial DNA. It's not one woman in a cave somewhere tied out from shouting all day.
Yeah.
No. Although the image, now that you put it like that, will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Excellent. Good.
It's strange that when we're talking about this period, when we do start to get censorship and that sort of thing, there, of course, we do also get an awful lot of nudity in statues. So there seems to be some sort of a bit of a conflict there as to what's acceptable and what is not.
And paintings, of course. And, a lot of, not only the statues, but the paintings were effectively defaced by later prudish moralists. Statues with fig leaves, as we know, and there are female self-portraits that were nudes that have been covered up with, a bit of an artistic sway of cloth or something to hide the vital areas.
Well, the church in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Or pasties.
Or pasties.
Yeah. Because God works in grace.
That's right.
Well, the church in Stratford-upon-Avon has got these beautiful medieval Roman Catholic friezes which were painted, but now you can barely see them because, of course, they were ordered to be destroyed. But instead of destroying them, the villagers just got whitewash, put a little bit of a layer of whitewash over them, so they have started. You can still see them; they're still there. There's an attempt at censorship that didn't quite work, which is nice to see.
Yes.
Do we think the reason moralists start getting upset about nudity and sex is because society drifts further away from its farming roots, so that the natural cycles of sex and death start to become abstracted from society as a whole?
I don't think we do think that, no.
Okay. Thought it was worth checking.
Well, I think what you've got is this really strange sort of society at this point. And I think it can be easily seen. Look at London at the time. North side of the Thames, basically Puritan rule, can't do anything. No theatre, nothing like that. South side of the Thames, not Puritan rule, anything goes. And that's where your whore houses and your molly houses and your burr baiting pit, that's all there. So I think there must have been a real fear that people were possibly enjoying themselves a bit much. And if you're enjoying yourself, you're not thinking about suffering on the cross.
That's why taxi drivers still don't go south. No, I'm not going south of the river, mate. All those bear baiting, pasty shops. I'm not going there.
Well, that, and ironically, of course, the South Bank to this day is the nomenclature for the kind of the high culture of London, which it was actually the popular culture.
It really was the popular culture. Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to have a nice afternoon out in the on the side of the Thames, you would cross, and then if I remember, you'd have to pass the burr baiting pit.
If you remember, you're not that old, eh? What are you talking
it's a vague memory, Tony.
If I remember.
If I remember correctly.
I was down the pub with Chris Marlowe. Oh, he was a card. He was. Knife in his back one moment, Will Shakespeare. He said, fancy coming down to Molly House? I'll show you a good time.
Yeah. It's a
sorry, I interrupted.
fairly strong memory.
A sense memory.
Yeah, it's a sense memory. Well, you still have Burr Gardens, which is the Burr. B-E-A-R, Bear.
Okay.
Gardens. You still have that
Can we
next
stick
to
to
the...
receive pronunciation?
We really should have.
Burr Garden. You're saying it to George Harrison.
I need to stick with the BBC.
No, don't.
No,
Whatever you do. No. But burr baiting.
Yes. Well, burr baiting to begin with, but then the public got a little bit bored of it, so then they used to strap chimpanzees to the back of the burrs, who would...
Now you're just hallucinating. They used to strap chimpanzees to
the back of burrs and get them to fight.
and that led to cockfighting.
Then you've got cockfighting.
And Heaven nightclub.
And then if you go around the corner, you've got Grope Comte Lane.
Yes.
That's true. And the reason we can get away with that, because it's fact.
It's complete
It is a fact.
And it was on there, you had I love this, the brothel, the most famous brothel in London at the time, which was called the Cardinal's Hat. And of course that is because if you look at a cardinal's hat, it is the same shape as the head of an erect penis.
Yes. I'm not quite sure anatomically that's true. I've known a few cardinals in my time. Are you confusing it with the Beretta?
I could be.
Yes, not the gun. No, not the Glock 45. Although all guns are phallic, I suppose. That's
They are.
isn't it? The machismo of shooting ranges and Trump's America. But back to what was it? Renaissance?
The Renaissance.
The Renaissance.
I was just, while we're on the subject, is it not the case that people argue that Threadneedle Street, where the Bank of England is itself a euphemism for a red light area?
Yes,
Because
that's right.
People would be up and down there threading needles all night.
It goes back further than that.
Does it really?
It does. It's often called the proto-novel in Spanish, La Celestina, and it was about a witch who, to come back to Threadneedle, who could replace hymens with, so that, the Threadneedle to restore virginity. And
So women would be a marriageable prospect.
That's right.
I get you.
Yes, so I bet they cross over somewhere. In fact,
They
I
will,
think they do.
sure.
These bits that come out just by listening to you two.
And that's arguably a transition or a Renaissance phase as well, isn't it? Because, of course, it was not long earlier than the 1400s, I think, that Don Quixote was written, which is argued by many to be the first proper novel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Although I believe there were earlier claims from the Far East. But
There were indeed.
Certainly from Europe.
That's right. And
Quixote was believed to be-
the Mozarabic as well. God, the years have flown back now. I used to know what Mozarabic meant. It was kind of proto-Spanish from the Muslim world. Because they were constantly trying. Well, it was wave after wave of invasion and reconquering, and then you'd end up on the South Bank,
I
in the Windmill Theatre.
I think the oldest scientific artefact in the Uffizi Museum is a brass globe of the world, which dates to 1172, and it's Moorish Spanish, so it's Arabic Spanish.
But isn't that amazing in itself? You've got a globe of the world, and how many hundreds of years later were people being persecuted for suggesting that the world was round?
Well, Galileo was doing it during the 1600s,
Yeah.
I'd say, so 5 centuries later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, within this little period that we're talking about, it's amazing how far things advanced to us also. Coming backwards somewhat as well,
Yes. Like Dan Brown. There's no excuse for Dan Brown being alive.
No.
All his novels.
That's a backward step from the Quixote, isn't it?
It is, rather, yes.
There's a lovely story by John Luis Borges about a guy whose mission in life is to recreate the Quixote, which he does by writing it word for word exactly the same as it.
You've got 3 balls in front of you.
I have. Here we go. Right.
Polyorchidee.
Yes, having 3 balls in front of you.
Yes.
And those numbers are
3, 5, 8.
358. We're into the world of politics. And we might need a bit of help here. So the subject is Well, other specialised forces and services, but we're talking about the military here. So, military specialised forces and services.
Well, it was a military office.
Because
That's right.
he retained his stools
yes.
then. Yeah,
Although you don't see that much on bargain hunts, do you? People
No.
hoard their, yes.
The coproliths of ancient
The
Athenian philosophers.
Did Nietzsche retain them in some sort of Tupperware, or did he try and retain them in his body?
Jars, I believe.
In jars.
In
Yes.
drawers, not the clothing.
The shark.
No.
Jaws.
Yes. No wonder it was always in a foul mood.
Yes, then he went to IKEA, something, flat packs, that
Yes.
kind of thing.
There you
Yes.
go.
No, he did. Yes, that's right. Clement Freud once, I said the word anal retentive in an edition of Just a Minute, and he went with the buzz and said, "Yeah, it's anally retentive." Got a big laugh. I mean, can you imagine?
I mean, from the retention of stools to Freud doesn't seem like a big leap to me.
No, that's right. But we Jungians, we said, so no blaming mummy today.
Well, was there a reason why?
Yes, he was barking mad.
Ah, okay.
There is,
Right.
there is that. Also, his name had far too many vowels in it because he was dyslexic. That's true as well. So he might have found it. His name probably wasn't Nietzsche at all. It was probably something, I don't know.
Neil.
Neil, yes, the great German philosopher Neil.
It is interesting the course history takes. That Friedrich Nietzsche retained his own stools in jars. His sister was a Nazi, and he's the one who's come down to history as mental.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem fair, really.
No.
I generally have forgotten what the subject was.
Military specialised.
Military
service.
special services.
Right. So that was military high.
So I guess we're talking about things like the SAS, the SBS,
Right,
Navy
yes.
SEALs.
Yeah.
Yes. The
Who have
special operations executive.
Oh, the Ministry
they
of
were-
Ungentlemanly Warfare.
That's
yes.
right.
Yeah.
They were highly trained and massive influence in the outcome of the war, but such was their secrecy. They're only really referenced nowadays in obituaries of the very last people in the Daily Telegraph.
And we're back to Christopher Lee.
We're back to
because
Christopher Lee, I was about to
go.
say.
He,
Yeah.
he was a member
nice
of the
one.
Special Operations Executive before he was old enough to be drafted. Yeah.
I remember, do you remember the embassy, which was in central London, 84, the Iranian embassy? That
Oh, I
was
thought you
taken.
meant the nightclub. there was a kind of like Studio 4 type attempt at the Embassy Club.
I don't think bouncers count as a specialised.
Yeah, but half of good bouncers are ex-SAS, aren't
That's
they?
yeah.
Sorry, that's a wild
People
assumption,
who've
but go with it.
People
Okay,
who've
we'll go
been
with that.
trained at dealing with
Yes.
stressful situations
Yeah.
rather than just thugs. Yeah.
No, I remember that being televised and everyone getting terribly excited about it. And I suppose it was the first time anyone had
Oh,
seen
we're
it.
back to the Iranian
The
siege.
Iranian
Oh my
one,
goodness,
yeah.
yes.
But and it going out live, as I remember.
That's
Oh,
right.
was this the one that was completely misrepresented in the film Argo by Ben Affleck?
I don't know.
Well, because in the film he has the British embassy
Right.
refusing to shelter the American diplomats, whereas in fact what happened
Oh, I
was...
think they played fast and loose, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
with-
What actually happened was the British embassy did shelter the American diplomats until they were moved to the Canadian embassy because it was decided that the British were so closely allied to America that the British embassy was likely to be the next target.
Yeah.
And that the actual embassy staff have gone on record as saying the British embassy probably saved their lives during the Iranian hostage crisis. But there we go.
Oh, well.
Ben what can you
And
expect?
do you remember seeing it? I mean, it was horrifically gripping, the storming of it. But by going from balcony to balcony with stun guns, and this was, as it were, live. It was live on television,
was, yeah.
and it was quite something. Because normally there would have been up to that point. I'm sure it was John Humphreys. I had a discussion with him once about various things because I did a program called On the Ropes with him, and he was a very bright and took no prisoners in terms of the. It's about people who've been on the ropes, and so you knew what you were getting. But afterwards, we just had a nice sort of friendly chat, and he specifically talked about the Iranian. It's funny how things come back just listening about the Iranian embassy, because up until that point there had been a kind of secret code, particularly at the BBC, about not showing stuff which was that graphic. And this, I remember, stuck out in my mind because it was like watching a real war film played in real time, and it was terrifying.
Yeah, it was. I saw it on John Craven's news round, strangely enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that it actually ended up strengthening the Pax Americana, because there was a period after the Iranian embassy siege where if there were British or American hostages taken by terrorists, they would release them immediately rather than deal with American or British special services.
All right.
Yeah.
What was it? I'm sorry, because you two are both so bright and fast. What was the original thing? It was we were talking about
Specialised military services.
Yes.
Right. So we got on to special operations exec. Oh, where does Martha Hari fit into this?
Ooh.
World War
It's wasn't it?
Yes, World War One.
Real name Martha Hari. No.
No.
No, but that wasn't a real name.
No.
Was it?
No.
She was from Bridlington, wasn't she? Or somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yes,
Sure,
not
yes.
not at all exotic.
No.
But a spy master, a double, triple spy.
Yes. Yeah.
So well remembered that she's a byword for the honey trap operation.
That's
of the
right.
day, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Would you rank her as a talented amateur rather than an actual member of the military special services?
Well, she was jolly good at her job, whatever that entailed, because she used her feminine wiles
Yes.
and hid her grenades and exploded people.
Yeah. Also in the talented amateur status, Heidi Lamar.
Hedy
Lamar, the actress.
Not Heidi Lamar,
No,
the Swiss,
Yeah.
the Swiss shepherdess.
The
She was
big
a
friends with-
fantastic spy.
big friends with Pippi
high on the hill
Longstocking.
with a mountain, go, off it goes. Yes.
You know, Heidi Lamar was a specialist in...
Heidi Lamar, sorry.
Sorry,
I'm
that's
not
okay.
going to let that go on because it's so funny.
Fair enough.
Heidi Lamar.
Well, she was a cryptographer, and she invented the frequency switching device that we base wireless technology on today. But it was done as part of the cryptographic effort in the Second World War.
Yep.
Wow.
We're still reading from Heidi Lamar. We are.
The thing that always strikes me
Brilliant
about
idea.
the Navy SEALs, it always strikes me because, of course, it's an incredibly fey name for a special. Given that America will call a drone flight over Iran Operation Thunder Penis, calling your most effective soldiers or sailors the Navy SEALs seems a bit for them.
Is it? Hang on. No, you both know because you're bright and line in so many ways. Isn't SEAL an acronym?
Yes, I believe it is.
For
Sea, Air and Land Service or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as opposed to little baby seals who we don't want clubbed to death because they've got lovely imploring eyes and you want their pelts to keep you warm at night. Yes. You've been listening to Children's Hour with John Craven. Next, the Iranian siege, Martha Hari and Heidi Lamar.
So here we are. The numbers for our final ramble have been selected, and they are
5, 2, 4.
5 to 4. And according to our little machine, that is. Okay, so she's a bit confused by this. Now we're into natural science here in the 500s, but that can also include maths, it can include physics, it can include geometry. However, 524 is no longer used. 524 used to be categorised, used to have a
This is a
subject,
new thing.
but
Wow.
no longer used.
Are we back to the Lord Chamberlain?
Possibly.
Possibly. We've had not assigned before, but not no longer.
We've had not assigned. It really sounds a bit occult, doesn't it?
It's like a category that's somehow been discredited, as though it's kind of, the evolutionary theory of race or something like that.
Think about all of these subjects. That's a hell of a thing to just go, that one no longer exists.
Yes, the same thing you'd expect to find in a grimoire in the Vatican.
Yes.
Is it phlogiston or phlogiston? I don't know how it's pronounced. My teacher pronounced it phlogiston, but I've heard it pronounced phlogiston. But
is that a type of pastry?
yeah, it was, but it's no longer used. No, this was before it was determined that burning oxygen is the reason things combust. It was believed that there was an element or an article of an element called phlogiston or phlogiston, which was the burny stuff in all materials, and that when you set fire to something, the phlogiston burned, and that was why the element combusted. And this was a very good theory up until I think it was the middle of the 1700s, when people weighed stuff they were combusting to see how much phlogiston weighed, and they discovered that the item that was burned took on weight because oxygen was it was oxidizing as it combusted, which meant for the defenders of the phlogiston theory that phlogiston must have a negative weight, and that was the official position for several years until the countervailing theory that the subject was the item was oxidizing became the accepted scientific orthodoxy.
I beg to say that everything you've said is a really complicated joke. And none of it is true. You've made up the word just phlogiston.
Phlogiston.
Yeah, however you want to spell it. In your nightmarish world. God, you would have been a great barrister. You would have been barred on your first case.
Barred from the bar.
Barred from the bar. Oh, no, I'd love to believe it. Phlogiston.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely true. It was a leading theory for many. Back when the differentiation between chemistry and alchemy and magic was much less than it is. Newton was an alchemist, so it was even during, and again we're back towards Renaissance theory, even during what many people would consider the birth of the scientific method, there was still an awful lot of magical thinking around.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, something that I've been saying to students for years is that you've got to remember that when you read Shakespeare and you look at A Midsummer Night's Dream, these people absolutely believed that there were fairy folk in the woods, which is why there's the whole of Act 5 of The Merry Wives of Windsor is Falstaff tempted into the woods, and he's terrified. That's a hell of a challenge for an actor after all that physical comedy to suddenly play real terror. But to the audience at the time, that would have been as real as any of the contents of Henry V or anything.
The polarization, you believe in God and Christendom, then you must believe in the satanic element as well.
Yeah.
You can't pick and choose. We've been over the Catholic Church and this transubstantiation, don't want to get too heavy about that. Again, not that we got heavy about it, I'm not being judgmental, but you're absolutely right. The satanic element was part of the human psyche for as long as we've been around.
Oh, it's the fear of the dark, isn't it? It's that.
And a persistent belief in fairies was around certainly until the late 1800s because Arthur Conan Doyle.
And the Is it Cottingley?
Cottingley, the Cottingley
fairies. And I remember the Cottingley.
Were they sort of black and white? The lie was given to them. The fairies, they were a miracle of sort of modern photography, and they were hoaxes.
Yes.
But they were all dressed as flappers.
Yes.
Which rather took the mystery away.
It did. And all they'd done, these two little girls, was they cut the figures out from a magazine and they'd used hat pins to make them stick out from
Lovely.
them. And they kept that going. I remember one of them died, and then there was one of the little girls left, and she was interviewed on Northwest Tonight just before, it must have been towards the end of her life, and she refused to admit it, even then. She would not admit that they'd be, and absolutely Arthur Conan Doyle turned up and was convinced
Well,
these photos were real. They're
You look at
beautiful.
them now and they're clearly paper cutouts.
Yes.
You think, well, at the birth of photography, when it was believed it
Yes.
must be a record of what is visually there.
Well, that's
you can
it,
see
'cause
why people were taken.
Again, the way that people responded to that technology, there's that story of the very first film is one by the Lumiere brothers, and it's of a train arriving into a station in Paris, I
Yes.
think. And it caused uproar
Oh, yes.
as it came out
Yep.
from the screen, and people were terrified and fled from the cinema.
Yes,
It's-
yes, they thought it was actually going to hit them.
Yeah.
well,
There's one of those films just come out recently. I think it's called The Terrifier.
oh yes.
But
Oh,
it's
there are three of them. now.
So it's Terrifier 3, and it's the first time in 20 years that in France they've had to say, no, this is 18 rated.
Really?
Nothing has been 18 rated for 20 years. It's always 16, but with this time, 18.
Yes.
Mm.
It's actually a European thing, because there's 18 plus as well, which normally is pornographic.
It's a tricky area. So normally it's 18R, 18 restricted.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right, 18,
that's it.
18 plus.
And that came in the 90s when we started to release that sort of material.
Yes.
And so anything that shows anything that intimate should be an 18R, unless it's art house.
Yes.
And the general thinking there seems to be that if you are intelligent enough to purchase a film like this, then you'll understand why they are actually having sex on screen. So you watch a film like The Idiots, which is just this stunning piece of filmmaking from Belgium, and it has a full-on gangbang halfway through. I picked it up from HMV, just 18 rated on the shelf, because it's an art house film.
Yes.
I think it's probably a bit like with Radio 4. You can get away with a fair bit more in terms of bad language on Radio 4,
Yes.
because the assumption is that you're well educated and can cope,
Yes.
which I fully approve of.
I think so too.
And of course, also for art house films, the assumption is always going to be that it's got a limited release.
Yes.
So it's not going to be seen by the general population.
Yeah.
Which is, it's interesting how commercial pressures work with censorship in the UK, because the BBFC, the British Board of Film Classification, as it now is, it used to be the British Board of Film Censorship, created the 12A rating when the Spider-Man film was released. Which, for those of us who don't know, the 12A rating says that you can watch that film if you are 12 years old and unaccompanied, but if you are younger than 12 and your parents are with you and they decide that you can see it, that is also acceptable.
Do you remember the excitement of going to see an X film?
No, I'm not old enough.
No, I don't either, Tony.
You're all right, all right. Only ask. Because I
Only
remember when
18s.
the Midground was an AA film. That's when I was a teenager, and if you looked old enough, you could get away, and that had saucy bits in it. Or no, it wasn't necessarily erotogenic, but it was the subject matter was more challenging and art housing.
Yeah.
Yes, there was U, there was A, there was AA, then there was X. And then it all became 12A and this and
It was
the
all
other.
rejigged in the 80s. wasn't it?
16 plus is a new one on me.
There
on
used to be
Netflix.
one you don't see anymore, UC. U is universal, but there used to be a UC, which is universal but particularly recommended for children.
Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh,
That sort
right,
of
yeah.
thing, yeah.
Well, there are porn versions of that.
Oh, yes.
Will do, yeah.
Of absolutely everything.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thomas the Wank Engine.
No. Now they get on to...
Of course, I came to cinema after the Video Nasties panic, really.
Which is
Of the
why you end
mid-80s.
up with the classification system, really,
Yeah.
because something had to be done.
Yes.
Because what are you going to do? You've got a film called Driller Killer. Do we just let that out there? Well, no, we've got to restrict it in some way.
There was a friendly video shop owner down the bottom of our road here in West Kirby who, he knew me quite well because I was in there a lot, and he used to let me rent videos that had been banned, and horror films that had been banned under the Video Nasty rules. And there were a couple of honourable ones. The Evil Dead, the originally Evil Dead 2 was permitted, but Evil Dead 1 was not. That sort of thing. But the overwhelming feature of the vast majority of the films that were banned under the Video Nasties Act is that they were shite.
Oh, yes.
They were so poor. You were watching this guy. I honestly believe you banned this to protect me from myself, but not in the way you intended.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The actor Ian McCulloch, wonderful actor, who was in Survivors and things like that, he ended up in a Video Nasty called Cannibal Ferox.
Oh, yes.
And he didn't realise what he was letting himself into. His agent contacted him and said, "It's brilliant, Ian, we've got a big Hollywood film." And he was like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Don't worry about the script, I'll do it." And he got flown out there, and it was a proper video nasty. You've got Greg from Survivors being all suave, with all of these 19-year-old Americans running around screaming and being brutalised. It's quite something to see this RSC chap in the middle being all stoic.
Have you got it in your collection?
I do have it. Oh, yes.
Can I borrow it?
You can certainly borrow it.
Thank you.
So after that long ramble there, we find ourselves not underground this time, but Tony has allowed us back into the body of the presidential shed with a roaring fire and a hot cup of tea. So, Tony, did you enjoy today's ramble?
I really did. 3 minds alike in dignity in fair Verona, where we burnt our shed. From 4 nations break to new nudity, where civil guts play civil hands unclean. That's the Bowdlerise version.
Yes.
Romeo and Juliet. Just came into my head. I thought you were both marvellous.
I was very, very annoyed by somebody who kept... They were trying to walk me through Romeo and Juliet, and they kept insisting that the line about fatal loins meant it's because everybody dies. And I'm going, no, it's fatal in the sense of destined. Fatal.
Yes.
You know, it's not
From forth the
star
fatal
crossed.
loins. No, quite right.
Yes.
Not bad. Anyway,
Well,
not bad on Shakespeare. It's BBC Three's new art house programme.
With Valdemar Janocock.
Yeah.
Twat.
well, thank you.
We'll be interviewing Smithy from Gavin on Station.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed this week's meeting of the Rambling Club.
The club meets, if we're not cancelled, every Friday. But if you'd like to get in touch in the meantime, here's how you can find your fellow members.
Tony's official website is at www.tonyslattery.com, and you can get in touch with us there on the contact form on that website.
And we're on Twitter, at Slattery Live. Please feel free to use the hashtag TSRC to discuss any of this week's topics.
I'm on Twitter too. You can follow me there at Paul Carmichael V.
And Tony also has a Facebook group, which is www.facebook.com/groups/the_Tony_Slattery.
And you can find him on Instagram as well. You can find him there at... Thank you.
A handy finger points the way.
At Tony_Slattery_official.
Yeah, and if people want to join the Rambling Club for themselves, how do they go about doing that?
Well, what you do is you head to www.patreon.com/Slattery Live, and we will be delighted to welcome you as a member of Club Slattery. There are all sorts of perks there. You get an entire hour of the Rambling Club that nobody else will hear, which is with you on the first day of every month. There is the opportunity to ask us anything, which we will also include in that show. Oh, there's all sorts there. Go and have a look.
Yeah, so please do get in touch by any of those methods. We would be positively orgasmic to hear from you.
We would. And you know what? If you can't do that, there's one thing that you could do for us. We would really appreciate, which is wherever you got this podcast from, would you mind popping on there and giving it 5 stars? That's the best stars. 5 stars, and maybe a couple of lines of review, because that really helps us to spread the word about the podcast and other people to join us on the Rambling Club.
And Tony will be back to lead us in another ramble next Friday. And we hope you'll join us again too.
We do. So until then, it's a goodbye from me, Paul Carmichael. It's a goodbye from Mr. Alan Lear.
Ta-da!
And it's a goodbye from Mr. Tony Slattery.
Goodbye, and thanks very much for listening. Bye.
You have been listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club with your host, the club president, Tony Slattery. He was accompanied by Stephen Free as the voice of the bingo machine. Tony was assisted by Paul Carmichael and Alan Lear. The music was composed and performed by Michael Lively and Andy Frizzell. The voices are by Michael Lively and the show concept is by Paul Carmichael. Our producers are Stuart Morris and Alan Dibing, and the show series producer is Eric Aguirre. Our executive producer is Chris Castle, and the series executive producer is Mark Strickson. Tony Slattery's Rambling Club is a Fanfanitel production.